overview or?
Whatever you guys want to do. I'm here till 3:30, so.
Okay. So are you here just because you're one of the tech people, or okay? So what do you know? What did you know about human trafficking before you got assigned to do this?
Nothing.
Have you gone to the other speakers?
I've gone to one other.
Okay.
And she just talked about like the organization
Okay.
of Eden's house or something like that.
Okay.
So were you supposed to just take pictures or videotape the whole thing, or?
I'm just supposed to videotape the whole thing.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we could do.
Yeah, I mean, so.
It's hard to video and it's hard to talk to an empty room. What do you think? What do you think we should do?
That is completely up to you guys. I mean, if you don't want to go through the whole thing again because there's no one here, it's fine. You just won't be recorded for your last one.
What happens with the recording? Is it just for?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I was just told to come here and record it.
Okay.
Bummer. Our last session was full.
Yeah. I mean, if you just want to go a brief overview of maybe do like 20 minutes rather than trying that a whole hour.
Right.
Just give the interview. I'll tell her, I made a couple of models of the background.
Okay.
Tell a story. We'll call it a day.
Okay. Sure. All right. We'll just pretend. Whenever. Okay, cool. We work with Emmaus Ministries. Emmaus is a small nonprofit on the north side of Chicago. And at Emmaus, we work with homeless men that are involved in what we call survival prostitution. And what that means is that we work with men that are homeless and use survival as a tool to meet immediate needs. Things like somewhere to sleep that night, enough money for food that day, enough money for clothing, or sex in exchange for drugs or alcohol or something very immediate need focused. And so what we do at Emmaus is we have outreach. We do outreach 7 nights a week. Every night of every day we are out on the streets from around 10 p.m. until around 3 a.m. And we are, during that time, just building relationships and building trust with the men that we work with. At Emmaus, many of the men that we work with have dealt with such intense traumas and abuses and all these things that trust and relationship is a very slow process for them. So it's really important that we are out consistently and building relationships with these guys. Once we've built a relationship with a guy, we invite them to come to our ministry center. Our center is open 6 days a week, and that's where we serve a family-style lunch every day. We give guys the option to take a shower, do their laundry. We have a clothing room and a food pantry. We also do a host of different Bible studies and different education classes. We have opportunities for our guys to meet one-on-one with a staff member and do some pastoral counseling. So a host of things happen in our ministry center to help guys on their journey towards wholeness and towards reclaiming their lives for themselves. And so that's a brief overview of what we do at Emmaus and the men that we work with. We work in just one neighborhood in Chicago out of over 70 neighborhoods, and we have over 300 men that we work with consistently. So as you can see, there's a great need for Emmaus, and there's much more need in Chicago and in every city across the country for work with the men involved in survival prostitution. As far as we know, we are the only ministry in the country that works exclusively with men instead of women in prostitution. So that's just a brief overview of what we do and the men that we work with. Sil, do you want to say anything?
I'm Sil Davis, and I work with Caitlin at Emmaus, and I'm the director of ministry with Simply Means. I'm overall direct ministry at our drop-in center and outreach. And so once our outreach teams are out, they refer me back to the ministry center. And in the ministry center, they can come and they can receive a meal. They can take shower, do laundry. We provide everything to do that. Our meals are all sit down, family-style meals in the ministry center. And then I do pastoral counseling and assessment for mental health, medical treatment as well. And we try to fit the needs of the man. And so when a man comes in, we ask him what is it that he feels that he needs to want to accomplish for that day or his time at Emmaus. And then we work out a plan. We also do goal settings for the men. And so as we're working with them as well to do their goals, what are the steps that they need to do to receive those goals or to achieve those goals? Who are the men who come to Emmaus? There are our brothers, uncles, there are our sons, come from every walk of life. The age range currently is from 60 to 18 to come into the ministry center, but we see kids as young as 12, 13 who are out on the streets and doing outreach. A lot of our men, as Caitlin said, are homeless. They're dealing with drugs issues, some of them. Also a lot of mental illness, bipolar, schizophrenic, dissociative disorder, depression, so a variety of mental illnesses that are there as well. Sometimes our men come in and they've been called stupid and dumb for so long, and it's like then they find out through assessment that they have a learning disability. It could be dyslexic or something else, and then we work with them to get GEDs, again, to help them with their education. Some of the men have come from a variety of backgrounds, and so people often ask, how did they get into survival, sex, and prostitution? Men also come from a lot of backgrounds of physical abuse, spiritual abuse, emotional abuse. And I remember one man talking about, why not prostitution? Why not get paid from what people have been taking from him all along? And so, through their abuse, those are some of the areas that prime them or get them ready that prostitution is not a big jump for them to do. In orientation, our men come from, they're homosexual, bisexual, some of them are heterosexual as well. So we have a man who just had his ninth child by a variety of women, and some men have actually been out there to prostitute to get diapers or formulas for their kids. Because also they come from being involved in the criminal justice system, and when you're involved in the criminal justice system, you get become a convicted felon or you have that on your record, it's hard to get a job. So again, just coming from a variety of backgrounds as well. Prostitution is not glamorous out there. They're not making a whole lot of money, and so they're not making hundreds of dollars a night. Again, it's just enough to survive, to get a hotel room for the night at a cheap hotel, $30, $40 a night type of hotel, or get their drugs or get their next hit. The John is a supply and demand, so the Johns, these are the men who are picking them up, can tell too if a guy's high, he just needs enough money, $5 more to get that $30 to get the next hit of crack or whatever the case may be. And so just working with them again and being safe, not going the safe part of the prostitution, and just working with them to say, this is how you need to protect yourself and watch out. One of the stories of one of the men that I can think of, just talking about the dangers of prostitution. He was in the park, he was prostituting, he got picked up by one guy, and he waited till it was getting dark and cold, really not wanting to stay in prostitution and not wanting to get picked up. And so he got picked up by this guy, he went home, and when he got there were several other men waiting on him. And so they held him for several days, and over the course of that day, they were engaging in all type of forced sex acts with him. At night when they slept, he had to sleep in between two of them, so he wouldn't leave. And he actually heard them on the phone saying that, hey, come over, we got this young boy, and you can do whatever you want to him. He eventually talked them into letting him go saying he had a medical appointment and that he would come back to them. And when he showed up at the ministry center that day, he sat outside my office, and as I was sitting there, I walked past him several times, and the Spirit kept saying, you need to talk to him. And finally, the third time I walked past him, the Spirit said, stop and talk to him. And when I went in and talked to him, he started telling me the story and started breaking down and crying. And as we assessed, he was suicidal, and so we had to take him to the local hospital, get him medically checked, and then he was committed to the psych ward to get the help he needed. How do you deal with trauma? I'm sure most people couldn't imagine what it's like to go through such trauma. Or you've been in situations where you've been beat and physically abused, you've been whipped and burnt and scarred and all of those sorts of things. Or you've been engaged in sex with parents and siblings and just come from such abuse as well, spiritual and emotional abuse. Another one of our men who unfortunately passed away earlier this year, but he's a case of someone who left the life. He had been involved in prostitution for many years. He ended up leaving the city of Chicago. He got a job, at one point working 2 jobs, got a vehicle, and he was a good father to his son, and actually had got partial custody of his son, and was really working to get his son full custody. He had a girlfriend who he was engaged with and talking about marrying. But unfortunately, his drug use, his drug of choice was heroin. It affected his heart. So at 39, he had a heart attack. When the staff and I went to the funeral, I remember his mom, when we got up and we told her we were from Emmaus, just falling into our arms and saying, thank God for you guys. We know that you all loved him and you helped him. Where would he have been if it had not been for you guys? And also his dad, who was a pastor, when we reached him as he was standing and looking down at his son in the casket, talked about, but he finished well. And so that's what we need to get people to understand, that people, just because they started in this life of trafficking or prostitution, they can finish well. It's not something that they have to live in and die in, that you can escape from it, that you can go on to be productive citizens. Probably a message I would send out. People often ask how they can help. I would say, first and foremost, praying for the ministry. We always in need of finances, but also helping out. For the churches that get involved, prepare your congregation and receive people who are coming from such brokenness and sexuality that they've been dealing with, and be able to minister to them in a local church. Because a ministry like Emmaus can only raise them so far, and we need that additional help to come alongside. Also for the mental health professionals, know the signs of when somebody's involved in prostitution and when they are being trafficked. What are those signs, and how do you come along and assist them, because it's different than perhaps some of your other clients, and then particularly dealing with their guilt and shame over what they're doing and what they have done. So these are just some of the ways and a little bit about Emmaus and how you can come along and work alongside of a ministry such as Emmaus. Thank you.